Alright, so we are back. It is ICD, or the Dark One, and we are back with the first Kamen Rider crossover movie. This is the first between Kamen Rider Decade and Kamen Rider Double. So, from here on, once a year, we'd get a crossover between the current Rider series and the previous Rider series. As I stated earlier, in this case, Double and Decade. This serves as a fun little tale in the current series, as well as a bit of an epilogue to the previous series. But here's something that's a bit odd. In the theatrical releases, we'd start off with the previous Riders portion before moving to the ongoing current Riders portion of the story, as the story is split, as it will be split into three, with the previous Rider, the current Rider, and the crossover part. However, in the home release or director's cut, it's switched, with the current Rider's tale starting first, and then moving on to the previous Rider's story. Albeit, in most cases, it seems to flow the opposite way. I don't know, it's just kind of weird. In this case, it's not affected as much as you would think, because these are very disconnected stories up until a certain point. But the director's cut is seemingly the one I watched, so I had to go with that. Again, this is inconsequential in this specific case, but I've seen other cases where the story flows a bit better, and yeah, in those cases, it's a bit weird that it's like this. This is an angle that it's like this. Certain movies avoid this by being full-on crossovers, but for the most part, the movies take on this format. But without further ado, let's go with the way I saw it, and talk about Double's portion. So, the way I saw it, our movie starts off with Double's portion, known as Begins Night, as this is, technically speaking, the beginning of Double's story. In a way, this is a bit of a flashback mixed in here. This serves as Double's origin story and gives us the full context about what happened to Sokichi Narumi, Akiko's father, who is dead. For the first part of the series, they just say he's missing to avoid Akiko feeling grief of her father's death, but he's out and out dead. Oh, also, by Die Hard rules, this is also a Christmas movie, because we start off on Christmas with Shotaro reminiscing about his fallen mentor, as the various Futuro regulars, who I didn't talk about in the Double video because they're very much side characters, but they are the people who help Shotaro on his cases every so often, as they have come to the agency for the Christmas party. And, well, chaos is ensuing because the Futo's irregulars are here, but suddenly a client pops in, a rather famous pop star from a famous sister duo, whose sister has recently died in a boating accident. However, the pop star has seemingly recently seen her sister, and has come to the agency for help tracking her down. Yeah. With Philip, we know that she's 100% super ultra dead, but there's still this weird ghost to talk about or think about. So obviously the group investigates and meet an rather odd priest in the obvious mystery way that you know this character is going to be important to the mystery, and or is the actual culprit. You figure out what she is. But after they move on from there, they find a ghost and then find the Death Dopant, who attacks them who decides to attack the group by summoning Sokichi Narumi. So there's one thing I didn't mention about Sokichi Narumi up to this point. He is also a Kamen Rider. Sokichi proceeds to transform into Kamen Rider Skull. For those of you who don't know, Kamen Rider Skull is based off of the Skull Man, another work that was done by the original author of Kamen Rider. I'm forgetting his name now of all times. Essentially, this form was made to be... Shotaro Ishinomori. Yes, that's his name. I fuck up saying his last name often. Anyway, this is basically meant to be an homage to this in a way, which is really cool. But yeah, Kamen Rider Skull is really cool looking, and that's all I can say about it, because he only makes appearances in this and one special. People, prequel manga, focus on Kamen Rider Skull. Let's go for it. Anyway, so yeah, Skull beats Shotaro. Wait, speaking of, can't we get a double form using the Skull memory? side thoughts. Anyway, Skull beats Double, with Sokichi berating Shotaro for, well, being weak, and this breaks Shotaro, as Sokichi's opinion of him is essentially the most important thing to this guy. Anyway, after the loss, Shotaro says he's going to quit being a detective before rushing off to the island where he met Philip, and Sokichi died. 1 year ago from the present that is ongoing in the series, Sokichi and Shotaro were basically sent on a case by Shroud. I haven't mentioned Shroud because she's a very super important background character for Double, and a lot of her characters wrapped up in mystery that will be major spoilers if I said anything more about her. So, her name is Shroud, she's super important, and if you want to know more about her, watch the show. Anyway, Shroud is seeking the Child of Destiny, who would later become known as Philip. Anyway, they go onto the island and they're attacked by Museum's forces because remember, Philip was being held by Museum originally, so Sokichi fights them off and tells Shotaro to hide. Shotaro, being a little idiot, doesn't listen to the man and runs off, finding Philip. He starts to fight with Philip because Philip sees the Gaia memories as being great things to force humanity to evolve, and Shotaro sees them as the dangerous tools that they are. Anyway, this causes a bit of a fight between the pair, with Shotaro pushing Philip away. So a side note here, in this conversation, Philip says uses that whole old analogy that you don't blame the gun manufacturer for the deaths the gun causes. Saying the Gaia memories are analogous to guns, but as the series is portrayed, they're more analogous to drugs. Hell, they're called dopants. So I just find this little aside amusing in a way. It's just kind of funny. Anyway, Philip finds himself stuck in a weird crystal thing. I forget, it's supposed to be something important, but I forget what exactly it's supposed to do. But yeah, Philip is stuck inside of it, and so Shotaro and Sokichi go to get him. Sokichi ends up going to the Gaia library, the library that's basically Philip's mind palace, in order to get Philip out, while also giving Philip his name based off an old detective novel. I forget which one at the time of writing and recording, but it's a rather famous novel. Anyway, obviously the group are attacked by Museum again, and in the ambush, where they use actual guns this time, they manage to kill Sokichi. So it turns out, what can kill a Kamen Rider? An actual gun. Anyway, yeah, Sokichi is killed in the ambush, and Shotaro and Philip have no choice but to transform into Double for the first time in order to make their escape. We also get to see Philip use Fang Joker for the first time, because base Double doesn't get the job done in this case. But we go back to the present. In the present, we see Akiko, who calls Shotaro because she's actually on the trail of their client after she tried to break off the job. But Akiko said, technically speaking, no, and decided to follow her. It turns out she's meeting with the priest, who, as it turns out, is the dopant. The dude was essentially kidnapping the rich and famous in Futo by promising them that he can reunite them with their loved ones again. Shotaro and Philip arrive on the scene and he attacks the pair with Sokichi again, only for Shotaro to stand in the way of them, basically using Sokichi's teachings against them in the form of Sokichi saying about protecting the client. Double and Skull fight, and Double manages to beat Skull, revealing that their enemy isn't the Death Dopant. In fact, the Death Dopant isn't a thing. What they've been fighting this whole time is the Dummy Dopant, who has the ability to mimic and transform himself into anyone and utilize their abilities, which is a kind of a cool power. Essentially, it makes him Ditto, but in a cool way. Anyway, as it turns out, the agents of Museum are here to back up Dummy because they want to use the Dummy's powers for their own purposes, albeit they don't get a chance to, with Dummy turning into a tire and escaping. Now, what's interesting is the fact that this is the only time in the series we see all of Museum's major generals outside of Smilodon, aka the cat, working together for a single purpose to attack Double. It's kind of interesting how this is a pretty cool lineup in a fight, but they never do this again because they all hate each other outside of one specific case. Anyway, let's talk about Double's portion. Decade's portion. Decade's portion, which serves as a bit of a true ending to Decade. Ironic for a series that didn't have a planned ending. It starts with Tsukasa having accepted his fate as destroyer of all worlds, taking out a group of Kamen Riders in a rather cool action scene, and at the same time, the Hikari photo studio is empty as everyone is gone. It's just Natsumi and her grandfather again, and, well, Natsumi's kind of vexed on the fact that all her friends are gone. Tsukasa continues his fight, taking out more and more riders, turning them into cards, and eventually he's attacked by riot troopers and saved by Electric Wave Humanoid Tackle. I know that's a very long name. She's a character who's important for Kamen Rider Stronger. I don't know anything about her outside of the fact that she may or may not be the origin of the trope of Kamen Rider heroines or the female Kamen Riders meeting tragic ends, as she gets a tragic end. And this and her own original series, I haven't seen Stronger, so I can't comment on if that's true or not, but I know in the meta sense she kind of is. Anyway, Natsumi finds herself in a strange place, finding Yusuke, of all people, who explains that Tsukasa has to be defeated, only for Tsukasa to walk up. The group has a rather awkward reunion, only for Tsukasa to push everyone away for his sake of destroying all worlds, with Natsumi unable to fight, and is met by Kiva-La, who offers her the power to fight and defeat Decade. Meanwhile, in an odd subplot, Natsumi's grandfather wanders off again into Double's world because apparently him and Ryubi are drinking buddies, only to be ambushed by Narutaki, who triggers the dude's memories and transforms him into Dr. Death again, with Narutaki becoming Colonel Zell. The pair gather Dice Shocker's remnants and christen themselves Super Shocker and plan to be rid of Decade once and for all by creating a being that can surpass God and begin their assault on all worlds once again. And this is a really weird subplot that seems to come the fuck out of nowhere. Anyway, Decade fights more riders, carting them along the way before he has a final confrontation with Yusuke and wins. Natsumi actually arrives in time and transforms using Kiva-La to become Kamen Rider Kiva-La. She fights and beats Decade, stabbing him through the driver, which honestly, just from the edit, looks like she stabbed him in the dick, which is kind of hilarious, but also ow. And she destroys Decade and the driver. Daiki appears, and the pair learn that Decade's destruction has indeed repaired all the worlds, as they're met by a representation of this in the form of, I forget Kiva's name. Yeah, I'm terrible with this stuff, but he was also the one that syndicated his mission in the first place. This isn't exactly him. He's used to represent, I guess, the multiverse or the writerverse in a way. It's weird. It's kind of weird. Anyway, yes, so basically, Tsukasa's destruction has indeed repaired the worlds by allowing their stories to continue from the memories that he gathered on his journey. Very Kingdom Hearts-y, if you ask me. However, when they ask about Tsukasa's fate, they're told that Decade has no story, so there's no way for him to be revived. The group does find a way to revive him, though, using a photo that Natsumi took of him earlier in the movie as they rush to get the abandoned camera that Tsukasa threw away, only for Super Shocker to show up and to stop them because they don't want Tsukasa to be revived. Yusuke is revived, obviously, so he jumps in to help fight and get the photo developed. You know, in this entire sequence, Natsumi doesn't decide to hench in. I know they're saving it for the finale, but you know, that would have been really helpful, Natsumi. Anyway, they rush to get the photos developed, and using the photos, they managed to trigger the memories of Tsukasa and revive him. Again, very Kingdom Hearts-y. And they all join together to fight Super Shocker, with the 9 other Rider Worlds joining in to fight as well. Everyone fights Super Shocker and defeat their Super Shocker ultimate weapon, but it's not their ultimate weapon because their ultimate weapon is actually a giant freaking ship and attacks them and sends out a giant robot mammoth who attacks Decade and ends Decade's portion. Did that sound like a mess? That was a mess. Yes, it was an entire mess. It was a bit of a mess. Honestly, that ending feels really rushed in all honesty, but I did like parts of it. The parts I call Kingdom Hearts-y. Anyway, our crossover begins with Double chasing that tire into a desert. I don't know how this tire is moving faster than Decade's bike. I mean, than Double's bike, but it is. But yeah, and Decade running away from the fortress attacking him. Okay, it was the mammoth before, but now it's the fortress itself. So there's a bit weird disconnect here or there. Anyway, the two cross paths mid-chase, and the dummy Dopant jumps on top of the mammoth to attack the group. Decade uses the final form rides of all the Kamen Riders to attack the fortress and the mammoth, while Decade takes on Dummy and double hijacks the mammoth and attacks the fortress. Inside, Natsume manages to actually get her grandfather and reveals a Dr. Death memory that falls out of him, assuming that his transformations into Dr. Death before were just caused by the Gaia memory. I'm entirely confused about this plot point about Dr. Death, if you can't tell. Anyway, Shocker's ultimate weapon, which I forget if it has a name, it sounds like a kid, acts like a kid, I'm just confused by its existence, so I'm just going to call it Shocker's ultimate weapon. Number 15, because they invent a new ultimate weapon every week. It assimilates the dummy Dopant, and the kid uses Double's final form ride, splitting Double into two Kamen Riders, Kamen Rider Cyclone and Kamen Rider Joker, in order to do a triple rider kick to destroy the damn thing once and for all. Tsukasa manages to give Shoto a bit of a reward for helping him out by summoning Sokichi from another dimension, because there are hundreds of alternate dimensions apparently. This alternate world Sokichi does give Shotaro a compliment before riding back off into his world. He is entirely confused, but I do like the sentiment. The photo studio crew return to their studio and decide to continue their adventures traveling the world. Meanwhile, the Double crew returns to their agency to celebrate Christmas and continue on in Sokichi's wishes. With the post-credit scenes, because of course this movie had a post-credit scene showing off the appearance of Ruri Terui, the man who will become Kamen Rider Axel. I don't think I said his actual Kamen Rider name in the original video. Oh boy, that was a mistake. Anyway, yeah, so this movie is pretty good to okay. I'm going to be honest, the Double portion of this was the standout because it gave us a necessary backstory for Double and showed us Kamen Rider Skull, which is really cool. The Decade portion was okay. I liked the action scenes the Decade portion gave us. I like some of the emotional sentiment, and the Decade has no storyline. And again, I like the Kingdom Hearts shit that happened in that portion. That was the part that I liked the most. But a lot of it was weird. Like, Tackle. Where did she come from? Like, you can say she's from an alternate world, but they also say she's a ghost. And it's just kind of weird, and I don't know what that's about. There's also the fact that this kind of serves as Decade's finale. Although some people say it doesn't really line up with Decade in general, so it's kind of a shit finale. Personally speaking, I'm just like, look, an ending's an ending at this point, as long as Decade's finally over, but it's never over, which is good. The action scenes on Decade's portion were really good, but it had its issues. Also, again, what's up with the Dr. Death thing? Like, was it all a thing? And then there's finally Narutaki. Okay, so if you remember from the All Riders vs. Die Shocker movie, Narutaki's apparent motivation for being against Double from the beginning was because he knew of Tsukasa's past of being the leader of Die Shocker. But in this movie, he gets Die Shocker and resurrects him as Super Shocker to kill Tsukasa. I'm so confused about this. Narutaki is confusing. Dr. Death is confusing. Super Shocker is weird. It's all a mess in all honesty. Like, I feel like they were just there to add in to create the final villain for the movie and this being that surpasses God, and that was it. Honestly speaking, if you're a fan of Kamen Rider, you've probably seen this movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I recommend it. If only the Double portion. The Decade portion is kind of weird, but if you want an ending to Decade, it's there. Yeah. Overall, I come away liking this, but I do have my issues with this movie. Mainly the Decade portion. But again, I do come away liking this more than disliking it. So there's my sign off right there. And yeah, this is a weird movie, but I like it because it's weird. And that's what I'm going to end this on. So, yeah, as I said, pretty good. If you are a fan of Kamen Rider content, I do videos on Kamen Rider. I do weekly videos on Kamen Rider. At least I try to do weekly videos on Kamen Rider. And yeah, hope you all have a good day or evening, depending on when you're watching this. And so long till next time, everybody.